Okay, so our clocks have changed, everything gets darker an hour earlier, and it reminds me that Christmas is on its way. Clearly we spent quite a lot of time working on the wind wall, but it is time to get back to Christmas presents. And I'm thinking about calling these the breadboard projects because quite a lot of them are just made from breadboards that I buy in my local store. Tremendously useful things, great way of getting some nice hardwood. Usually you get them in a kind of beech, or you'll get them in a sapele or something like that, and they make a great way of making gift-sized presents. And you're paying something like this about £2 for that board. So if you're trying to buy that as a hardwood, you'd probably pay a little bit more. So it's a good way of getting hold of odd ends of hardwood to do nice gifts out of. Now this one's actually going to be a desktop toy. It's a Catapult, and it is a piece of cake to make. Okay, so this thing's really simple. It's actually just 4 blocks of wood. There's a big block for the base, a couple of uprights, and then the arm to actually fire it, and we need a couple of dowels. So this is a bit of 9mm dowel. First thing, cut out the base, cut out the uprights, and cut out the firing arm. So a lot of these things I don't give measurements because there's no real need to. I mean, I'm just judging it by eye, a bit about that big. That big is about 100 by 200, something like that. Then we have a couple of uprights I've cut at 30mm by the bit that length chopped out. I might chop those down a bit. They're going to go like that, and that's my arm, which is clearly 150 by 50. And that's going to be pivoted at the bottom there. And we'll have a little point coming out here, attaching to here, a couple of rubber bands. You pull it back, you let it go, and it's going to be a catapult. The joy of this sort of stuff actually is in the wood itself. So it's really more an awful lot of sanding than anything else. So because all these rough edges we've just done the saw cuts on, we can actually sand them, and we will sand them. But these things are brilliant if you're not too scared about handling them. Obviously don't go licking the sharp edge because you'll be sorry. But if you get hold of one of these, they act like a mini cabinet scraper with all that tedious mucking about of having to sharpen a cabinet scraper. So you give it a sand. Once it's had a nice sand, put it into the vise, and you can draw this thing along with a slight bevel to it, and you give your wood a silky sheen finish that's really actually quite beautiful. When these wear out, because they're just absolute pennies, you just get another one and you've got yourself a mini cabinet scraper that does that final finish to the wood, so that you get a beautiful silky wood. You put a bit of oil on it, and then the joy of the wood will come through, and of course that's what you're looking for when you're looking for something as simple as this. It's a bit of fun, but it mostly sits on the desk as an ornament, and so the objective has to be make it look nice more than anything. And so the time is taken really on that sanding and that finishing work. The actual construction work in itself for something like that is really, really simple. So usual stuff, I'll give this a sand with 80 grit, 120 grit, put it in a cloth, stick it in the vise, and go over it with a cabinet scraper. That's what I'm going to do with it now, and then I'll assemble. Here's my block of wood, there's my trimming knife, a slight angle to the blade, and just draw it evenly across, and it gives it a nice finish. These are the uprights, and in these uprights we need to drill a couple of holes. The bottom hole will be the pivot, and the top hole will be the stop, and we need them in the same place. Easiest thing to do, tape them together with a bit of tape. It keeps everything in the same place with the same registration. So you drill those holes, you know those holes are in line. So this is my throwing arm. I've drilled a hole right the way through there, which is where the pivot's going to go, and this is the bit that's going to throw. Now I need an indentation, and to make that indentation, then we could use a spade bit, but a spade bit has a sharp point on it, like that, and that'll leave a puncture hole. What we tend to use is this, which is called a Frostner bit, and that makes a nice little dish. So I'll just line that up to the centre. Looks pretty good to me. And then we get that little indentation. So in the throwing arm we drilled a hole, we've put our pivot pin in, and we drilled another 9mm hole. It's not actually the stop, this is the bit that carries the elastic bands that are going to be the power behind it, and then we put a bit of 9mm dowel in there and drive it through. So there's my upright with the stop in place. The pivot goes in there like that, remembering that it's going to actually fire in that direction, so that piece needs to be facing there. Then I've drilled that at 10mm, that at 9mm, so the 10mm is nice and loose, and now we have to drive the 9mm onto there to make our firing mechanism like that. We've done the firing mechanism, all we really need to do is mount it to the base. So mounting it to the base, line it up, draw a little marker. Now I drill through at 6mm from one side, clean off the pencil marks and then put it back in place and drill it through from the other side. Okay, so we're almost done. All we've got to do really is put something in there as springs. We're going to use 2 elastic bands and they hook over there and they hook on that bit there. Now there's one slight issue with this. If I pull that back, no problem, when I let it go, the rubber bands are going to spring off. So we need to cut some discs out so that we can put them as stops on the disc completed. All we've got to do now, glue them onto there. There is our little catapult, all finished. And that is going to make an awesome Christmas present. A bit of practice and I'll be firing things over the office at him. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the project and thank you very much for watching.